So this is going to be a quick walkthrough of the instructions for the Create a VM assignment. I expect it to take you about an hour. It's going to probably take me less than that. Learning outcomes, basically this is really getting yourself set up. You're probably going to learn a little bit of stuff that's going to be useful throughout the program though. We're going to be creating a virtual machine on whatever our host machine is. I don't want to have to deal with explaining how to do things on 1,000 operating systems, so I'm going to assume you have Ubuntu on a virtual machine. You click on this link, click, and it'll download this ISO file, which is basically the contents of a CD. Then you're going to click on this VirtualBox website link, and you're going to find the download that works for your host, your computer. We're going to call the host computer. In this case, I'm using OS X. Click, and then it downloads this DNG file. And if I run it, it'll take me through installing some software. The instructions are going to vary. I'm not going to go through that. Suffice it to say that when I'm done, it's going to put this software on my computer. This is called Oracle VirtualBox. These are all different machines, as if I had 3 different machines, but they're virtual. They're really just files on this computer that I can start up and run as if they're a machine. We're going to be creating a new machine, and I'm just going to quickly go through that. We're going to hit the new button, and we're going to call our machine SER222-Lubuntu. When we type in Lubuntu, this is smart enough to realize we're using a Linux, and we're using the Ubuntu version 64-bit. So I'm going to continue. The recommended memory size is fine. I could increase it if I wanted. We're going to create a virtual hard drive, which is a file that lives on this computer. We're going to use a virtual disk image. That's the file format. It supports resizing the file. I'm going to hit continue. Dynamically allocated means that the size of the disk grows as I store more things on it. So it's basically the largest it's ever been. That's how big the file is. And there's a way to shrink the file after the fact. So even if I were to make this file be 2 terabytes, the actual file itself on disk might only be a few gig. So I'm just going to go ahead and make it be 100 gigabytes and create it. So now I have a Lubuntu machine. If I click over here on the start button, I can launch that machine, and it wants me to insert a CD into the drive so that I can boot it up. This is where I'm going to look for that ISO that we downloaded earlier. So I had downloaded Lubuntu 1310 desktop AMD64.ISO, and now I can start it, and it's going to boot off of that CD on this little machine into English. I'm going to install Lubuntu, so I press the down arrow to install it and hit enter. And then it's going to take me through a sort of a GUI install process, which takes a while. I'll do the first couple of steps, and then I'll pause this video recorder so that you don't have to wait for it to actually install. Lubuntu 13.10. A big window popped up, way bigger than my recorder. It's giving me some messages I don't care about. And here we go. English looks good to me. I'm going to press continue. I'm not going to download the updates or install third-party software because I don't want to wait that long. I am going to erase. This is the virtual disk, not any actual real disk. So it's not my real hard drive. This is that virtual disk which is already empty, so it's safe to do this. And I think from here on out, it's pretty straightforward. We're in Arizona. We speak English here. This keyboard layout is English. My name, whatever. My password, my business. And I think after that, it doesn't really ask me anything else. It goes through this kind of long process of copying and installing files. Long as in, I think it's somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. I'm going to pause it while that happens. So it's done. It's restarting Ubuntu now. So for some reason there's some ugly text here, but it's telling me that it's removed the CD and it wants me to hit enter to continue to reboot. Here we go, we're booting back in. By the way, this guest operating system is living inside of a very large window. Don't let that get confused. You might have to scroll within this larger window in order to see the entire guest operating system. So now I've logged in. I'm going to reduce the size of the guest operating system. Here we go. I've got to scroll down in order to see the taskbar, and then I can reduce the size of the guest operating system to something very small. There we go. I'm going to switch into the shell, which is, I believe, erase that. I'm going to start a terminal by pressing Control-Alt-T. And it's hard to see that terminal. The text is a little bit small. But I'm going to install the build tools. So sudo apt get install build-essential. So that's all the things you need to build software. I'm also going to install the compiler that we use for this class, Clang, Vim, an editor to edit code, and Git, which is what we use to save and submit our code. So this is going to take a while. I'm going to say yes, please do install it, and I'm going to pause the player while that installs. Alright, so the build tools have been installed. We can do a quick check. Clang is the compiler, and if I check which version, it tells me a valid version. G++ is another compiler, and if I check it which version, it tells me which version. So we're looking pretty good. Now I'm ready to install the VBox guest additions. That's software that allows this guest operating system to communicate out here with this host operating system. So for instance, I can copy and paste from OS X into this Linux machine. In order to do that, I need to come up to the top and under Devices, hit, make sure this is selected, and then under Devices, hit Insert Guest Additions. It's going to act just like a CD-ROM was popped in. So it's going to open it in the file manager. I'm going to go to Tools. I'm going to open a root folder, or open up a terminal in that folder. And I'm going to run VBox guest addition. So I'm going to type super user do, or sudo, run it through the shell. And what I'm going to run is VBox Linux add additions .run. Sorry if those keystrokes are loud. It's going to take a second to build. Pause it. I just want to point out that when it says it's building this stuff, it doesn't give you intermediate output. So it'll just sit on those lines for a long time. Don't try to force it to close. Just wait for it to finish and make sure that there's no errors. It wants me to restart the Windows system, so I'm going to type in sudo. I seem to have accidentally clicked on the wrong thing here. There we go. I'm going to type in sudo reboot. It's going to ask me to log in again. And I'm in. And now when I resize the window, because it's got guest editions installed, it resizes the desktop so everything fits nicely. And if I come back up here to the top under devices, with this window selected, under devices, I can say to make the shared clipboard bidirectional. And what that means is if I copy from, say, this web page, I can paste into this machine. I'm going to open up a terminal again, Control-Alt-T, and now we're going to set this machine up to use Git and to push changes that we make locally to a remote repository. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a remote repository on Bitbucket, and I'm going to name it SER222 Submissions J. Femiani, and we're going to use Git. I'm going to enable issue tracking and a wiki, and I'm going to create the repository. So the URL for that repository is all of this plus a .git at the end. That's going to matter in a second. So coming back to the terminal now, locally we're going to set up some things for Git. We need to create. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder under my home directory called SER222, and then I'm going to change directories into that new folder, and I'm going to initialize Git. Once Git has been initialized, I can configure Git to know my username, so John Femiani, and I can configure it to know my email address, if I spell it right. And those will get added to every log message that I post on Git. The other thing that I'd like to do is connect this repository to Bitbucket, and that command is where this URL matters. So I'm going to add a remote repository. I'm going to give it a name, origin. That's the convention for your main repository. And I'm going to copy this URL and paste it there. Again, the reason that I can paste is because I installed guest editions and went to devices, with this selected, went to devices, shared clipboard, bidirectional. And once I've pasted the URL in there, I need to put a .git at the end. And also, I need to put my username in there, jfemiani at bitbucket.org. So that is adding that remote repository. I must have typed something wrong. Git remote. It's git remote add origin. And I mistyped the word git. It's G-I-T, not G-E-T here. And that time there was no error message. It worked. And before I do anything, I'm about to start a new assignment. So I'm going to create a new branch. So I'm going to create a branch called Assignment 1. I think maybe perhaps before I branch, I need to commit something. And I need to have a file to commit. So I'm going to add a README. So echo, this is my README, to README.md, that's markdown. And then if I do git status, I can see that it is untracked, so I'm going to add it. If I do get status again, I can see that it is ready to be committed. So I say get commit initial commit added readme. If I do get status, all is good. It's on branch master. So now I think I can create a new branch, assignment 1, and I'm still in the master branch. I'm on branch master, so I need to say get checkout to switch to assignment 1. And now if I type in get status, I'm on branch assignment 1. So everything I do inside this branch will be part of assignment 1. So assignment 1 wants me to get the output of the LSB release command with -a flag, which tells me about my Linux distribution, and it wants me to direct that into a file called Linux version.txt. So if I list, I've got a Linux version.txt, and it wants me to, if I cat, I can see what was in there. And I misspelled it, so let me rename that. It should be Linux version.txt. And it wants me to take my Clang version output, which is that, and pipe it into Clang version.txt. So now I've got those two files. If I cat the Clang version.txt, I can see it's Debian Clang version 3.2-7. And if I do get status, I can see that those are, I don't know why I typed ls. I can see that those are untracked. So I can add all of the text files. And again, I don't know why I did ls. It's get status. I can see that those are changes to be committed, and I can commit them. Added files that show, or that show Linux and Clang info. Get status, and it should be clean. If I type in get, so I believe I have never pushed. So I can push the entire repository. So git push, and I need to tell it, at least the first time, I need to tell it where I want to push to. And I want to push it to that remote location which I had called origin earlier. So I'm going to push to origin. Ask me for a password. I think I need to say git push upstream origin. Okay, so I need to do it one branch at a time. So that pushed the master branch up to origin, but I want to push the assignment 1 branch up to origin. So it might have been a lot there, but what I've done is I have up here on Bitbucket, where the heck is it? Right here. On Bitbucket, if I look at the source, under master, that README that I initially committed now shows up. But I also created a branch called assignment 1, which I pushed up here as well. and my graders can go and look at assignment 1, and they can see everything that was part of that assignment. So for each assignment, you can create a different branch off of master. Do that assignment, and then commit that as a different branch. And then of course you can keep doing version control stuff off of that branch. If I look at commits, I can see a little bit of this, and I can see where I branched. And if I hit pull request, then I can ask as if I'm going to merge, as if I'm getting permission to move assignment 1 into master. And I can create the pull request and send it to SER222 grader. But they need to have access to the repository, so let me do that first. If I go to the repository and I send an invitation to SER222 grader and give them write permission and share, so the repository is now shared with them, and then I can go to create a pull request and share it with the grader. And I could close the branch or leave it open, but I create the pull request. So the grader is set to review the pull request. I'm the author, and the grader can really quickly see everything that was changed in this assignment, and the grader can drop off comments. You can see all the commits you did as part of that activity with the messages. They can approve, they can decline. So I guess that about wraps it up. And that's how I want you to do assignments. When you're going to move on to a different assignment, you just check out a different branch. Check out master again. Now when I list all of those changes I made for assignment 1 are gone, I can get them back by checking out assignment 1, and now they're all back again. Alright, I guess that about wraps it up. Goodbye.